Welcome back to the Ride Laugh podcast. If you love mountain biking, you are in the right place. Picture your last group ride. You had a great time. You're back at the parking lot. The stoke is high. Everyone's talking about the trails, jumps, drops, progression, tech, nutrition. That's what we talk about every week on the Ride and Laugh podcast. You love bikes. We love bikes. Let's drop in. Sage, how are you today?
Oh, Danny had a tough day today, but I'm really looking forward to this podcast. How are you doing, brother?
Yes. Very, very busy. End of the year stuff going on, but all good.
Oh, yeah.
And getting my rides in. Weather is perfect every day here in Arizona right now. So gratitude, I'm looking out the window and it's just another perfect day and it's fantastic. So happy about that. Welcome everybody to another episode of Ride and Laugh. Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, I thought that I had less rides this week because I had a little bit of an injury.
What?
Maybe one of my dumber injuries, and that's really saying something because I've had a lot of dumb injuries.
Yes.
Haven't we all? By the time you get to this age, I don't know. Yeah. Oh, the Ride and Laugh party's starting off hot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Get your shots ready. Here we go. So I got the little ramp, right, for the backyard and for the kids and to practice my jumping. And instead of dragging it to some place where there's a grass landing and a down landing, a downslope landing, I was just hitting it in this like pretty much flat ground that's just dirt. And I'm practicing the technique that Josh at Slanted Ground had said, get out in that little ramp and practice the small jumps. And that Cole had talked about leading with your chin and getting forward. And so I'm practicing that and I'm boosting it and I'm getting some pretty good air and I'm just landing to flat. I'm on my dirt jumper and I'm just landing to flat over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And my old body's not used to that. And let me tell you, like I started to walk around later on and I was like, oh, it kind of hurt. My hip kind of hurts. Like both of my hips hurt a little bit, one more than the other.
Yeah.
And I remember years ago, I went to the kids one of their friends had a birthday party at one of these trampoline parks. And myself and a bunch of the other dads were all like, oh, this is awesome. And so we all got passes and we're all jumping around on the trampolines and we're all in our mid 40s. And the next day we're all texting each other. Nobody could walk. Like nobody could walk. We were totally laid up. Our backs, our legs, our knees, like you're just not used to it anymore.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was essentially just jumping, 3.5 feet up in the air and then landing and landing and landing. And my body's not used to it. So
yeah, man.
Do you ever notice that? You do a lot of trail running, so you're probably more used to taking those impacts. Have you noticed that you need to adjust to different sorts of impacts?
No. Although I will say, I do know what you mean about taking repeated impacts. And I have to say the dirt jumper, I mean, that's aluminum. So it's also extra jarring. There's really not that much suspension. It's smaller tires. You're usually running higher PSI in the dirt jumper. Mm-hmm. So you don't really have the cushion from the air either. So yeah, it makes total sense, Danny. That makes total sense. Yeah, maybe jumping it into the grass or at least giving yourself some kind of a landing.
Yeah, I need a landing.
Yeah.
I want an airbag is what I want. I want an airbag.
Geez, that'd be great. Yeah. Yeah, you're going to be bringing out mattresses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's not a bad idea, too. Yeah. My wife would love that. Let's put some spare tires in the front yard while we're at it.
Yeah, right.
All right. We are reviewing Ride and Laugh episode number 44, Decaffeinated Superman, mountain bike trail tips for free speed, tech climbing, and more fun. That was the episode where you didn't feel well because we thought you had maybe switched to decaf by mistake.
Yes.
And we said Superman because you had flown off of your bike after a crash. Everybody take a drink.
Oh, my gosh.
And then the earth was the kryptonite, but you were Superman while you were still in the air. We talked about pumping. We talked about tech climbing. And we talked about tires, and we got some feedback, some really interesting feedback on what tires people are running and what people recommend. Of course, Cush Core is always something that comes up, or tire inserts is something that always comes up that we've been talking about lately. So Logan, our buddy who took you on that ride, where you cleared a whole bunch of gap jumps and learned the shark fin, and Logan's awesome. And he wrote, great episode, guys. He runs the new Continental tires, and he said that's where it's at. They're DH Super Softs in the front and DH Soft in the rear. No longer need to run Cush Core in any of my bikes, including my e-bike, and they also last pretty damn long. So, and then Dennis at Denny Genetti MTB, he also recommended the Continental, and he said he's moved away from Maxxis. Maxxis seems to be default. And I've been paying a lot of attention to the tires that I'm seeing out here in the desert.
Okay.
I'm seeing it's mostly Maxxis. It's mostly Maxxis, and it's the Assegai on the front, which is what I run. And Jeff Jackson's buddy, Jeff told me that they're running the Aggressor in the rear. I have the DHR in the rear, the downhill rear.
Right.
And he said that tire tends to work a little bit better when it's wet out. So he said the 5 days a year when it rains in Phoenix, you'll have an advantage. Otherwise, Aggressor. So I'm looking forward to that rain. I'm gonna shred it. No, I'll probably wear through that tire. I'll wear through that tire way before. But so I know you used to run Continental tires, and now you switched. What have you found?
Man, I always loved my Contis. I was running the De Barons, and before that, I forget what I had. But yeah, I really enjoyed my Continental tires. For me, they had the perfect grip and perfect compound. I had to switch because the prices on those things just skyrocketed about 4 years ago, and I could no longer afford them. They were getting to be $75, $80 a pop. And, I'm not making, tons of money doing YouTube. So I switched over to American Classic, and they have been amazing. Yeah. Yes. But I got to tell you, even if I started making tons of money, I really enjoy my American Classics. Now, regarding the Maxxis.
What are the American Classic? Because I don't know that everyone's familiar with that brand. I wasn't until I saw your review on it and I saw them on your bike. Where did you find them? What's your take on them?
I just searched cheap tires on Amazon, and they're one of the ones that came up, and I was like, dude, at $45, let me just try it. And they were legit. They were legit great tires. I mean, the compound on it is wonderful. I'm not wearing through it, but it's still sticky. The tread on it is unbelievable. It does remind me of those Maxxis tires, that kind of a tread. So yeah, it's been working out really well for me. I have not been a Maxxis fan. They came with my Ibis when I first got my Ibis. And listen, that was 6 years ago. So I'm sure that tire technology has changed, since then.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're going back to the 1960s now. I mean, there's been a lot of changes since then. My goodness gracious. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, yeah, I don't know. So what are you're seeing that people are still running the Maxxis. Here's the thing, though. Typically, it's hard to change tire brands because they're so expensive. You kind of stick to what you know. So if your bike came with a certain tire, and it was this worked out, you'd be really hard pressed to try a different tire. I wonder how many people are sticking with the tire that actually came with the bike, because you don't want to spend $80 for a tire and then find out you didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, and tires are just so important. It's the most important contact that you have with the ground, between the bike and the ground. And so when you find a combination that works well, you just kind of stick with it. And I know that when I see them, the Maxxis tires that I like go on sale, I'll just buy a pair.
Yeah. So you're going to stick with Maxxis then?
I'm probably going to stick with the EXO Plus in the back, and maybe EXO Plus or EXO. That's a type of sidewall protection that Maxxis has in the front. And try to keep that weight light and see how it goes. I don't, until I slice open a tire, and I hope I don't, I don't see the benefit of the extra weight of the downhill casing unless there's extra support in there.
I just think that you need to find the right compound. It's not about the strength of the sidewall for you. You're not having problems flatting. You're not having problems tearing. You just have to find the right compound that's going to minimize the amount of wear that you're currently experiencing. Or you need to find a cheaper tire, if you're going to be wearing through tires that quick. It's that simple, I think.
Yeah, RideandLaugh1 at Gmail, YouTube comments. We can keep it going with what tires people are using, what people have experimented with. Is there a tire that you love? Is there a tire that you hate? And, have you found that the downhill casing, the double down or whatever it may be in that brand, is that going to provide a little bit of that extra sidewall support like a cush core might? And then are we just better off doing a cush core on a lighter tire than a double down casing? So
yikes.
there's so much little minutia in mountain biking. It's awesome and it's fun to talk about. But there's certainly a lot, and really when it comes down to it, if you're a good rider and you're centered, then I think having a decent tire of any brand is probably going to be fine. You know what I mean? Like DHR versus Aggressor, like how much different is the traction really going to be in the desert? I don't know. I'm not a good enough rider to really feel a major difference. You do, right? You notice the
oh my God, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm super sensitive. Yes, I am very sensitive, but I'm also a very fidgety rider. I don't like to, I'm not a straight line blaster. Like I move unnecessarily, maybe necessarily on the trail. I like to just jib and jab wherever I go. And, I do feel the difference of tire. I do feel the difference of PSI. Like I'm very sensitive to those things, which is funny because I don't consider myself a technical person when it comes to like knowing bikes, like people, like people that can like rattle off chainstay lengths, and like top tube angles and blah, blah. I don't know any of that stuff, but I know what works and I can definitely feel when something's off.
You ride by feel. You're not into the technical aspect of it. And if I change this, then this is going to happen. You just know how it feels. And it feels certain tires are going to feel a certain way for you, and a bike's going to feel a certain way for you. And we'll get more into that later and on how things feel. And so you're really going just by intuition. You're really dialed in. You're really present. You're noticing how the bike feels in certain conditions. I know that when you get to a new trail system or when you start riding and the conditions have changed, it's rained, it's thawed, it's snowed, it's dry. I know that for the first few miles, you're purposely trying to unhook the tires. What are you doing? Are you squeezing back brake, trying to like see, or are you leaning into the turn? Like I know that you're trying to figure out early on in the ride how the tires are going to react so that you can then push yourself later on in the ride, right?
Yeah. Not just that, but I'm studying the features that you see along the trail. I'm trying to figure out how they're built. I'm testing the dirt, the tackiness of the dirt. I'm testing out the rocks. If we get to rock rolls, I'm purposely, hitting those rock rolls and getting aggressive with it. I'll drag my brake on it. All of those things. They're just all little things that I'll do probably for the first I would say probably 20 minutes, even 30 minutes. I think I don't know if I'm good at a lot of things, but I do know that I'm really good at riding a trail blind. If I've never been to a trail, I can hit it pretty fast. And it's because I'm taking in all that data from the start. Yeah. I remember that time that we went to Albatross at Frederick Watershed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We had never hit that trail ever. And that day was all snow. It was all snow and wetness at the top. And and I remember you were riding super cautiously, which I totally respect. But I was starting to feel really good. And I asked you, I said, would you mind if I popped in front? And man, you and I opened up a can of something on that trail. We were flying down that thing. And I was just like, I must have been looking like 50 yards ahead, but we were just plowing through these rocks. I was trusting the bike. I was trusting the tires, and we were moving, man. You had to like really compress and jib and jab through these rock gardens. This Albatross trail is a black diamond trail that's just full of jank, just like big baby head rocks. And if you weren't on top of your game, steep and
fast jank. Yes. Like,
yeah.
Let the bike move under you, and speed is your friend. Yeah. So sorry to interrupt.
No. And unfortunately, I didn't have any video because I was in the front. So I wasn't recording any POV. But you and I have done that, where we're just ripping through this stuff, but you got to trust your gear. That's what we're getting down to. You got to trust the gear.
Trust your gear, but also I have so much to say about that. Trust your gear, but also trust your intuition and trust your skill. So I don't really do that. I mean, when you tell me about like I'm testing the corner, I'm testing the traction, and you're able to wait into the corner in a way that you're like, okay, I notice how the bike feels. I'm noticing how the tire slides a little bit and then hooks up. So if I'm noticing that here, then I'm going to be able to push it a little bit further there. And so you're kind of like, stacking mini wins. You're like just getting your confidence built up as you go on a new trail system or on just on different conditions. You're starting to just really get a feel for how the bike feels and get your confidence up so that when you start getting into an hour into the ride or half an hour into the ride and you get to that downhill, you're ready to rip it.
Yeah.
So when you talk about us, flying down that Albatross trail, the only reason I flew down it was because I was following you. There's no way, if I was in front, there's no way I would have gone that fast down the trail blindly. I was just following you. So I would, it's so much easier to follow someone else's lines. You were on a relatively short travel bike and you're just flowing over that stuff. I had more travel. I still couldn't keep up. There's also a fitness element to that. And being in that downhill in that attack position, there's a focus element in that and being present. And I would like to say, you also mentioned opening up a can of Whoop. What did you say? I don't know what you
did
said.
I say? A can of something. Yeah.
I would like to coin a can of Whoop bars. I just think that's your term.
Whoop bars. Yes. Oh, I love it. Yes. A can of Whoop bars. Yes. I wouldn't have said the other word. Yeah. Cause I try not to curse on the pod, but yeah, Whoop bars. That makes sense.
Hence ours.
Drink up.
But opening a can of Whoop bars, y'all. Right, left t-shirts. Here we go. Can of Whoop bars.
Yeah.
And
I
you get
tell
the picture.
Danny,
I feel like opening a can of Whoop bars, and then the picture would be someone downhilling on a penny farthing. It's an old timey. It's an old timey term. So
yeah. I got to tell you, Danny, that does bite me in the rear end sometimes. So the idea is speed kills, right? So if you can get more speed and you can flow through this stuff, you kind of nullify some of the chunk. But if you pick a wrong line, it's easy to get overwhelmed.
That's very easy to do here in the desert, especially at a place like National Trail where it's not really a bike specific trail. There's just rocks everywhere and you can start going pretty fast and you have to keep your eyes up, right? That's mountain bike 101. And it's the most important tip of them all is to keep your eyes up and give your bike computer, which is your brain, time to register what you're going to be doing next. And once your eyes start to wander down, and it could be that you start to get overwhelmed and you start to look down, now everything's coming at you really fast. It's just obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, and very easy to get overwhelmed and very easy for there to be a big rock in your way. That you just now you have to try to get over it instead of getting around it, or you're going up the wrong side and it's sandy. There's a lot here and it's gotten me. It's gotten me where I picked up a little bit of speed. I don't really know the line yet. And, all of a sudden I'm like banging my bottom bracket really hard on something. And I'm like, it didn't feel good,
What do you think holds you up the most when you are hitting a trail blind for the first time? Is it line choice? Obviously, that would include getting your head up, but you do get your head up. And what is it about picking the right line that you struggle with the most?
That's a good question. I think it depends what type of trail it is and how confident I am. So that's what's so cool about you when you get to a trail system, getting confident with the terrain and then being able to let it go later on. So I don't really know any of the lines out here yet. I haven't been on these enough I'm starting to pick it up, but I'm also riding new trails. I love trying new trails and new things. And there's trails all over the place here. And there's a zillion different lines you could take.
Yeah.
I think it's just a level of trust. I think it's a level of trust. And if there's some big consequence things coming up. I'm typically on black diamond trails. I'll do some double blacks. A blue trail, no problem. If I know it's a blue trail, really no problem. I mean, there's a blue jump trail here called Dirt Therapy. That's got big jumps on it. So I need to pre-ride that. I think it's just a matter of trusting that no matter what comes up, I got it. And when I get locked into that, I got it. I'm riding well. I'm centered. I'm warmed up. I've stacked wins. Then I can go. But there are features here. There's drops. There's steeps that I'm not ready for. And I think some of this stuff probably should be pre-written. But then again, you blasted down Albatross, no problem. So
yeah,
you could say you need to pre-ride that trail.
Of course, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm thinking back to like your struggle with the waterfall too. Like, I'm wondering if there's a difference between, like, you often say like, oh, I got to learn the line, or I have to learn the line. And for me, like, I think I'm able to like connect the dots quickly. Like I don't think that when we had the luxury of climbing the waterfall, so I had a little bit of a memory of it, but we did not stop to look at it to go down.
Yeah.
It. And I just went for it. And I started connecting the dots very quickly. So the very first move on that waterfall trail at National at South Mountain, it starts, well, you don't have to do this, but on the left, there's a giant rock over, and then you're right into it. And I'm connecting the dots pretty quickly. Like, it's a quick analysis of the full terrain, and then you're just trying to find the best line through there. And the worst thing that you could do would be to like stop, right? Like middle of that thing and just be like, oh, this was wrong, and hit the brakes. It's just, you got to trust it and let it go. And I'm wondering, I'm trying to get inside of your brain. Like, what's the hang up when you get to a line, when you see it? Are you not able to connect the dots quick enough? Or it's like, you don't trust
I have
it? Or
the fear
like,
response. I actually think I want to get more into your brain, because I don't know that, I think people can relate to me, but I don't know that this is helping anyone. So it's the fear response. I start getting into it. So there's that rock over right before the waterfall, the downhill starts, but the actual downhill is scary because as you come up to it, you can't see the line. You really can't see the line until you're into it. And then it rolls pretty nicely. And there's actually 2 lines that you could take. There's probably 4 or 5 lines, but to answer your question, when I get into something, there's a part of my brain that just panics. There's a part of my brain that's like, oh no. And then I start going back, and I start going too slow, and I'm staring straight down. So I need to work up to this comfort level of, I totally got this.
Right.
And it's taken a long time for my body and my brain to just say, okay, I'm trusting my skills now. The bike is awesome. I have my weight forward. My chin is forward a little bit, something else I've been working on, and everything just feels really good. And you start getting more and more confidence that I can roll all of these things. I'm doing this under control, and it starts feeling better and better.
So this almost seems comical in a weird way. And so I apologize, because this is not meant to be insulting. But if the way that you have been doing it is your fear response and you kind of push back, and things have not worked out for you doing that, why are you having trouble saying, okay, when I get to an uncomfortable situation, first of all, the first thing is don't do it. But if you're like, I'm committed and I'm going to do it, why not get aggressive with it? Why not get intentional with the bike? Because I think that's probably, and again, the advantage of not having anything in your brain is I'm just working off of instinct. And my instinct is when the trail gets nasty, I'm getting more active on the bike rather than like, oh, I'm going to get, deactive. I don't know. That's not the right word, but like, instead of pushing back, I get aggressive with the bike. I start trying to put my bike into places where maybe some people aren't trying to put. I'll do an endo turn in a very uncomfortable situation, or I'll try and like really just jam the bike down, like force that front tire into a line that might be difficult to get to, or pop a rock. Sometimes you and I talk about that. Like, sometimes going over a rock is better than trying to avoid it. And so I'm making all these computations in my head quickly, but I'm also getting very aggressive with the bike. And it sounds like when you get to a situation, your first response is like, oh no, you're pushing back and suddenly you're in a weird position. But judging by the history of
I don't want to be in the wrong position. I don't want to have the fear response. I don't want to push myself off the back of the bike. These are just habits. This is so I'm envious of the fact that you're riding aggressively, and we say this all the time. The skills are in there.
Yeah.
For me and for you and listener, for you as well.
Yeah.
The skills are in there. Like we have a lot more skill than we realize. And when we get out of our own way, when we're not thinking and we're present, and you're excellent at riding present. We talked about this in one of our very first podcasts, is how good you are at staying present when you're riding. And I said, do you think you could take that off the bike and be present in your daily life? And you were like, oh, I don't know about that, humming, but get you on a bike and you're locked in. You don't have that same fear response. I don't know why I have it so much stronger than you. Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail, YouTube comments. Do you have the fear response? What is your mantra to get over fear response? This is something that we've touched on in multiple podcasts, and I don't think it ever gets old. I think that, as human beings, especially if you hit the dirt a few times, or sometimes you get through something and you're like, I just survived that. I didn't do it right. And it doesn't give you the confidence, but then you're stacking wins. You're doing it right. You're getting better technique. And that's what I love about this podcast is, last week we were talking about being centered on the bike and having your chin forward.
Yeah.
And that being like a major tip. And I did some rides, and I went and I rode National Trail, and I purposely had my chin forward, and I was really making a concerted effort to do that. I wanted to see how it felt on the steeps, and it felt awesome. It felt incredible. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, this is better than I've ridden that well before, but without realizing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Without realizing specifically what I'm doing. And so I could return back to old habits, but now I'm consciously like chin forward. And then I went to Boulder Dash, and I was like, let me try Boulder Dash another level up as far as difficulty and steepness from what I was riding at National. And I was trying my best and I could feel myself getting off the bike, because sometimes it was just so bumpy. It's so scary, but consciously trying to get my chin forward and working the bike and pushing the bike into the ground. It felt really good. And, so it's awesome. I mean, I love the progression that we're talking about on the podcast, and I love actually putting into action. I did want to talk about Josh at Slanted Ground's latest video where he talks about breaking the glass, because he talks about doing a jump and imagining that there's a pane of glass right where the takeoff is, and you're breaking the glass with your chin and your shoulders, I think he said.
Top of your head and shoulders.
Top of your head and shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to burst through that. And what a great visual. I mean,
absolutely.
Dude, he is so good at just verbally saying things like that. Like last week we talked about getting pulled on the bike.
He's good at verbally saying things.
Yeah. Clearly.
I was like, well, thanks for the compliment. I can talk.
Yes. He's very good with words, talking. Yes, no. But just like last week, we talked about getting pulled on the bike, and like instantly you get a visual in your head. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, I get it. And the breaking the glass is the same thing. Like you can easily visualize exploding through this glass with your head and your shoulders. So I guess is the key then, instead of having the fear response, getting to the point where you're instinctually, when things get aggressive, when things get gnarly, getting to the point where your body just instinctively goes forward instead of backwards.
Yeah.
Right. Like you're like, dude, no, this, like, I own this. I'm going to go aggressive on this bad boy. Here's the thing, Danny. I don't know that you've ever had a crash or any kind of muff up when you've gone aggressive at something. Every time that you've had a mountain bike crash or accident, it's always been because of a fear response. When you've owned the trail, when you've been confident, you are unbelievable, bro.
How do we embed that? Thank you for the compliment. The skills are in there, everyone, the skills are in there. We are much better riders than we ever even imagined. And we are unlimited. We are unlimited, and the sky's the limit. Anything's possible. So the skills are in there. Like, we can all be the riders that we want to be. We're not who we think we are. We're better. Sage and I, we said that all the time. Who are we when we were clearing all these jumps? Who are we? We're not the ground bound riders that we've been our whole lives. So all of a sudden we're jumpers. So yeah, absolutely, anything is possible. And I love that. If I could get to a spot where my fear response is to get more aggressive, to get more intentional, to commit deeper. Oh yeah, that's another level. And that's where you are. I mean, is that just natural for you? Is that just you why don't you have a fear response? I mean, you've had some bad crashes, and I guess have you overcome your fear response on jumps? Because that's really where you felt it.
That's the one spot. I had that huge accident, and I had that huge block that I could not get past on the jumps. I'm past it now. I'm instinctual on the jumps. It's a wonderful feeling. It took everything to get to that spot. How many times did you and I mean, for 4 years since that accident, of you coaching me and trying to, and it wasn't until I said, okay, I'm going to commit myself. I told you, I said, this year I'm going to commit myself to jumps. And it started at Smedley. I started hitting that gully jump line, then Phoenixville Bike Park, and then Skyline. And then, we had a couple downhill parks here and there, but I literally for the year committed myself to being a jumper. And part of that was a mind shift, which is a total credit to you. There's a lot of things that get credit to you because you are a fantastic friend. You're a great coach. But this mind shift thing, that because you broke your face, you went through a mind shift, and then you were like, Sage, you're going through a divorce. I'm going to give you this gift of this mindfulness. And that was the start. When I said, I'm not that person anymore. Like, I'm not the person that can't jump anymore. I am someone that can jump. And it sounds silly. It sounds silly to say that. And it's like, how does that work? That doesn't work. It works because, one, you believe it. And two, because you are saying it and you're believing it, you're open to the things that are happening around you. So because I'm like, I want to jump and I am a good jumper, I'm at the jump line. Because I'm at the jump line, I'm meeting other people that are at the jump line. And then those people are giving me advice and those people are helping me. So it's all of these things and just having a positive attitude about it, right? When you're going into a jump, and listen, if you want the proof of does this work or not, why don't you go ahead to something that you're not comfortable with and say, yeah, I can't do it, and see how well you do at it. I'm not a good public speaker. Okay, well then let's see how you do when you go up on stage with that attitude. Now, I'm not saying that if you say I am a good public speaker that you're going to go up there and be a good public speaker, but I got to tell you, you have a better shot of doing it than going out there being negative. And that's the point. If you have this negative thought, I can't do this, I'm not that good, or I'm not this person, or blah, 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 then that's exactly who you're going to be. Because you're saying that. You're telling your brain, this is okay. I'm saying this is okay. It's okay that I'm not good. And I said, no, I'm not doing that anymore. I am good at jumping. I am someone that is going to be good at jumping. I am a good jumper. And that started the road to progression, Danny. I'm not saying that I don't get scared. That's not what I'm saying here. I still get really scared. Even on jump 4. Jump 4 on Skyline still gives me the heebie-jeebies sometimes. It's a pretty big jump. But I'm no longer thinking about each jump. I'm hitting it instinctually. And that was a great feeling. The day that I cleared it on the e-bike was the day that I stopped thinking about jumps. Once I knew I could clear it, that was the day that it just went instinctual. From there, it was bar turns and tables. Very shortly after.
You advanced so quickly. And what you're talking about is trust. You're trusting your skills. We are trusting our abundance. We're trusting our path. We're trusting that things are happening for us. And so when you're approaching jump number 4 and you have that moment of trust, I know how to jump this jump. I'm not going to squeeze the brakes. I'm going to be centered. I'm going to boost off of it perfectly. I'm going to spot the landing. I'm going to do a little move in the air, and bam, you're over jump number 4. And next obstacle to overcome. Okay. Jump number 5, jump number 4 with style, shark fin, step down. What's next? Dirt jumps.
I love it.
What's next? That's what we're here for. I mean, that's what the beauty of being a human being is overcoming these obstacles feels so good, and then moving on to the next thing and trusting what else can I achieve? We're unlimited. So Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail and YouTube comments. What's your experience with jumping and steeps and slabs? What is something that you've overcome? What is something that you're looking to overcome? What can we talk about? Is what Sage is saying resonating with you? Do you want more coaching on how we can really manifest to be the type of rider that we want to be?
How about setting expectations too, Danny? Like, how many times have you gone on a ride or you're on a ride and you're about to hit a trail and you're like, oh, I hate this trail, or, oh, I'm not good at this trail. Well, guess what? You're setting that expectation right then and there. Like, how about, gosh, not to throw Dennis under the bus, but he was like, oh, I don't like, tech climbing. Like, that sounds like the worst thing. Well, you know what? If you're going to go into it with that attitude, guess what? It is going to be the worst thing, but if you go into it and you're like, you know what, this is a challenge and I'm going to kick this thing's rear end and I'm going to enjoy this. I'm going to try and find the positives out of this. Maybe you still won't like tech climbing, but I got to tell you, you probably have a better shot at enjoying it than going into it with a negative energy. Like, I don't do good at skinnies. I don't do good at tech climbing. It's not my thing. I don't enjoy it. Well, yeah, you're not going to enjoy it. That's you just told your brain, I don't enjoy this.
These are all limiting belief systems. And we tell ourselves things on the mountain bike, and we tell ourselves things in life. Whether it be about a job or a relationship or just how, your wealth, your bank account. Like, I'm not the kind of person that does this. I'm not the kind of person that has a lot of money. I'm the kind of person that's always struggled to pay my bills. Whatever it is, these are just limiting belief systems. Just trust your intuition. Just trust yourself in the moment. And it goes back to what you were saying, when my fear response, going down steep tech or going over a jump or, at desert trails, and I'm leaning back, my fear response, lean back, lean back, lean back. And it doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
Leaning back doesn't work. It doesn't make me feel better. It doesn't make me succeed. There's nothing good about it. So when we have limiting belief systems, if we just take it away, if we just are willing to listen to intuition, instead of worrying about the feature that's coming up on the trail 8 miles from now or 3 miles from now, or tomorrow on tomorrow's ride. Oh, I know there's that drop that I've been looking at and that's really scary, or that jump. I've found recently that I'm just not going to think about it.
Yeah.
And when I get to it, I'm going to intuitively decide if I'm going to send it or not. But I'm not losing sleep about it. I'm not going to think about it too much. Can I visualize it in a positive way and feel good about it? Then I'm all in. But if there's fear in there and I'm like, I don't know, that's scary, or I don't know, you know what? I'm going to deal with it when I get there. I'm not wasting time on fear as much as possible. And I love that. I'm going to start thinking about, instead of going back on fear, going forward. Instead of going back to fear, we move forward with intention.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Woo.
Just summarizing what you said, really. But
yeah, much better, by the way. In fact, cut my whole piece out, actually. Just let's go with that.
Like Josh at Slanted Ground, I'm very good at talking. I have the gift of talking. But actually, I think what you were trying to say, and what Josh is really good at, is he's excellent at using visuals and analogies. He's excellent at speaking in very plain terms, at making all of this stuff very understandable. The way his brain works is he understands how to do it, and he understands how to explain it. So many people that are good at doing something, especially on a mountain bike, are just good at it. They don't really understand why they're good at it. And then you meet someone like Josh, or I met someone like Cole, who says, this is the technique. And you can take that tip about breaking the glass to your ride and use it, and you will feel better. How would the breaking the glass go on tech, on downhill, on steeps? Where would you picture the glass?
I guess the glass would be in front of you. For you, the glass would be in front. For me, I don't get low on tech. But for you, if you were going to do the chin forward, then yes, your head and shoulders would still break through the glass.
I think getting into it. I think if I get into it, a lot of times I'm good. But if I go into it and I see it and it's scary, like it's blind going in, like Boulder Dash is blind going into that last one, and the waterfall is blind going in, and so I'm breaking the glass I'm breaking a glass pane right at the moment of dropping in.
That's right.
Now I'm set up for success, and then stay aggressive. Keep breaking glass all the way down. Let's bring real glass. Glass bowling pins, glass columns.
I was going to say,
set them up.
For the jump, it makes sense because it's one pane of glass. You know, if it's a tech
it makes much more sense.
You're just breaking several panes of glass.
Our faces are just full of blood at the end. We're like, yes, that felt great. Here we go with the AI animation. That sounds great.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Well, we are going over again, which I love because you and I are just so passionate about mountain biking. But there is one ride that I did want to talk about. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about it. And that is I went to Mount Penn and I finally got to ride with Elena, who we were just talking about my jump journey this year. And she also made a commitment this year to start jumping. And we started following each other on Instagram. And I'm watching her at Trexler and at the bike parks. And her jumping is just getting better and better and better and better. And finally, I forget what post it was, but I said, listen, have you been to Skyline yet? Because I think you would really enjoy it. And we hooked up this weekend. She brought two of her friends, Andrew and Mike, and we all went to Skyline. She was unbelievable, Dan. She cleared the whole Big Five jumps within 4 runs. She had it cleared. It was unbelievable. Andrew was incredible. He had like a trials background. He had only been riding for a little bit, but that trials background, stop it. Like he was unbelievable. And Mike was a mechanic at Trek, and he was awesome, man. All three of them were just such a pleasure. It was such a great time. We just spent the whole day sessioning Skyline.
That's awesome. Everyone's unlimited. Congratulations. And that's awesome. I mean, Skyline is such an awesome place to go and jump. And I know there's other places like that, but for that to be at a public park and be able to have bike park quality built jumps that are perfect speed and big, but tabletopped at the same time, it's just it's just a really awesome, special place. I'm curious about the guy with the trial skills being good at jumping. Is that because when you're on the trials bike, you have to be so good at doing a J hop? Because you're on the trials bike, you're like bouncing around on the back tire and you're jumping the bike. Trials is slow speed moves. You're like literally jumping these little bikes like up onto railings and up onto logs and rocks. It's incredible.
We could do a whole podcast on what would be the best background to have, BMX racing, trials, or moto, and what I'll say about people that I have seen that are really good with trials, and Brian on the bike is another guy that does a lot of trials. They have so much control over their bodies and their bikes. They can do anything, Danny. You put a jump, they can do jumps. You want to do skinnies, they can do skinnies. Whatever. They are so in control. And so you watch Andrew and he's going off these jumps. It's no problem for him. He has superior control. Like he's up in the air and it's like, oh, if I need to push the bike down, I'll just push the bike down. He's not worried about how do I maneuver this bike. He can do that at any time. And that's the advantage to having that trials background. I think that's my opinion.
How do you even get involved in trials? I mean, I'm just so curious. Like, how does a kid get involved in trials? Like, most adults don't know what that is. I guess you probably you're already a big fan of biking. You're probably already on a BMX and doing things and hopping around. And then somehow you get introduced to trials. I'd be curious to Ride and Laugh 1 at Gmail, YouTube comments. What did you grow up doing? The best riders that what did they grow up doing? Were you ever exposed to trials? Were you exposed to BMX? If you could go back in time, what would you pick as your exposure? Would you pick between BMX, trials, and moto? What do you think would be most useful for the kind of riding that you like to do and the kind of progression that you envision happening? And we're doing the dirt jumping now. We're kind of like rewinding that, right? We didn't have the exposure as kids the thing with kids, and I mentioned this before, is you just have, first of all, your brain is just as open. You're just a sieve to learning, right? And you're not as scared of crashing because you're not worried about paying the bills and that sort of thing. But you also just have so much free time. You have so much time to just go outside and play and just be on bikes. And we do a fair amount of biking, but it's different when you're just outside just practicing. You know, if you were just outside on your BMX bike or your child's bike every day, it's like, you know, being outside just with a basketball net in your driveway, right? You know, you're just outside shooting 30, 40 minutes a day. You're probably going to get a lot better at basketball.
Yeah. You don't need a lot to get into trials. And so I'd probably pick trials. You know, with the moto, you need a place to, first of all, the bike's expensive, and then you need a place to ride it. You know, with BMX,
these are adult thoughts. These are adult thoughts. I'm talking like in a perfect world, you're being way too logical about this. If you could have been as a kid, you could have been exposed to any of those, not what your parents could actually afford growing up in the Philadelphia area. Like, no, in a perfect world.
The trials makes the most sense because you can go anywhere you want and just start doing this stuff. You don't need to be at a BMX track. And those are the things that would have held me back as a kid. You know, if you have, so those are grown up thoughts, but they're actually logistical thoughts that I would have had as a kid. Like, I can't afford a moto. I can't go to a BMX park, but you know what? I can go right outside of my house and work on these trials moves. If you watch these trials, you don't even need a special trials bike. Like, Andrew was doing these moves on a standard trail bike, you know, yeah. So like, I would have loved to have that. Like, if I could go back in time, I would have picked trials. Like, it would have been so fun to just work on that stuff for sure.
Those moves are absolutely unbelievable. I wonder how much, like, the girls and guys that learn BMX, I wonder how much they could probably just pick up trials.
Oh, now that's a great question.
You know what I mean? Like, the fact that you have a small bike and you're hucking it around and you've learned how to jump it and you learned how to J-hop.
Yeah.
You could, I wonder how much you could pick up the trials moves, but certainly when you watch the mountain bikers that have that trials background, when you see them on mountain bikes, using trial skills, first of all, and the riding skinnies, like nobody's business, right? No, I mean, just being able to, like, for the longest time, and then be able to jump from like feature to feature, be able to like just change lines by hopping the whole bike. You see Jeff Lanoski do that sort of thing all the time. We saw him do it going down Holbert. It was, you know, unbelievable body control. So that translates to mountain biking so beautifully, so nicely. As far as like big sends, if you're into big jumps, then moto, right? Like the high speed and body position, because that motorcycle is not messing around. Like, you have to have your weight correct or it's dunzos. And then BMX for like boosting and height, you know, like there's just mountain biking is awesome. So what do you think? Listener, rideandlaugh1@gmail.com, and logistics and adult mind aside, what would be the coolest background to have? What background do you have? What background do you wish you had? What would you like to get into now? I would love to get into moto. I don't know the first thing about motorcycles, but it looks like fun. I mean, logistically, it's pretty difficult to get into. So, all right.
Yeah.
Awesome conversation. We really just kind of started with a couple of the comments on tires, and we moved right through the podcast. We blew right past our topic again. I haven't even had a chance to tell everyone that if they're enjoying the podcast, to please like and subscribe and tell your friends and leave a 5-star review and watch on YouTube until the end, and comments in the YouTube help the algorithm. And thank everyone and gratitude for appreciating the pod. And let's get into our mountain bike gratitudes of the week.
All righty. Should I go first?
Go for it.
My gratitude goes to Sean, who is one of the specialized reps, and he was able to arrange a bike. I got to demo a brand new Stumpy 15 2025, and it was unbelievable, Dan. And I got to tell you,
the specialized stump jumper, 15, which is the number of stump jumpers that are out. So just for anyone that's interested, it's the Stump Jumper 15. It's the newest stump jumper. It's replaced the old Stump Jumper and the Stump Jumper Evo. It's all in one bike now. And I was wondering if you're going to talk about this today, because I'm super curious about it. Yeah, tell us about your experience demoing a modern, brand new mountain bike, because it's been a long time, other than the Levo,
Really
been a long time since you were on a different bike than your
Yeah,
Ibis.
I mean, it almost seems unfair. It almost seems like it's not right for me to be able to be on this bike and make a comparison or a review video because it's been so long. This bike just felt so different from my Ibis, and I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the new Geo. I don't know if it was the suspension. Like, there's just so many new things. But what I will say was this bike felt so planted, and I felt the same way about the Levo. And I thought that was because of the weight. But now I'm starting to think, well, if this bike feels the same way, it must be the Geo. But regardless, this bike was so planted, Danny. I took it. Now, listen, we only did Skyline. Like, we just kept sessioning Skyline over and over.
Yeah.
My goodness. Instantly comfortable. Like, very first, we're supposed to do pre-ride, re-ride. The pre-ride was like the free ride. Like, it just felt immediately amazing.
Oh, yeah. Pre-rides for suckers. Everyone knows that.
Oh man, I was trying to do a pre-ride. The bike wouldn't let me do a pre-ride. It was like, no, we're going to send this. And I was like, what? Oh, yeah.
This bike sends, it goes. Yeah,
it does. And I will be riding it for the next 2 or 3 rides to try it on some other things like tech and skinnies and all kinds of different things. But yeah, huge gratitude to Sean, because it was a mess. Like, Keswick's not close to me, but that's where the bike was. And Sean was able to arrange it to get it to my bike shop, which is Mainline Cycles. And then my guys set it up for me, with my pedals and that doesn't happen without Sean. So thank you, Sean. I don't know what to say. I love you, brother. That was awesome.
It's the podcast, right? I mean, so Keswick Cycles is my local bike shop in Paoli.
That's right.
And they're a specialized shop, and we've been working with them, and we've mentioned them on the pod. They've been fantastic to us. They demoed the Specialized Levo, which you referred to earlier, which is the Specialized e-bike, which is fantastic. And we've mentioned them several times. It's just a great shop, great people in there. The mechanic, Corey, and the manager, Gary, and everyone that works there, and Will, they've just been super cool. And Sean is the Specialized rep that works with them. And you ended up meeting him kind of independently at Phoenixville Bike Park, and you struck up a friendship. But there's this synergy of Keswick and the podcast and Trail Sage, and it's awesome. We're manifesting cool bike experiences, and for you to be able to get onto a modern trail bike, I can't wait for more feedback. It's really interesting that you rode it and felt that comfortable that fast.
Dude.
Really cool. So I can't wait for more ride reports, and absolutely gratitude to Sean and Specialized and Keswick and everyone for making this happen. It's just really cool. We're open to receive. We're unlimited.
Yes.
Good things are happening. Yeah, I love it. Fantastic.
Danny, what's your gratitude, brother?
My mountain bike gratitude of the week is based on my ride on Saturday. So Jeff Jackson, listener Jeff Jackson, MTB, he invited me on a ride at Hawes, and that was going to be with the Dirt Therapy Project. And I had heard about this because our buddy Sean Valdez is involved with Dirt Therapy Project back in Pennsylvania. And it's an awesome cause. And kudos to you, Sean, for being involved with that. And what it is they're helping vets find healing through mountain biking. So it's for our amazing veterans coming back from war or whatever experience they had. It's really an open organization, and it's really wonderful people. And there's an Arizona chapter, and a lot of them were based in Sedona, and they came down to Halls to ride for the day. And it's just riding and stoke and fun and flow and camaraderie and just everything that we love about mountain biking, everything you love about the mountain bike community. And it's just like all wrapped up, this Dirt Therapy Project. Check it out. You can buy a jersey, you can donate to it, you can get involved and ride with them. But really a great cause, and met awesome people. I met Michael and his daughter Danae, who was 16, and I was following her down Red Mountain Rush, and she was choosing awesome lines, and she was going at a pretty good clip. And I was behind her, just like, I was like coaching her up at first, and then I was like, you don't need my coaching. Like, she was awesome. She was awesome. And then we get to the bottom, and she's on a hardtail. I thought she was on a full suspension. I mean, this girl was flowing over the rocks. The trails all rutted out. She was just amazing. Michael was riding a hardtail also. And so Mark was on that ride, and Jason and Neil, and then the local guys that I've met, Jeff, who I've talked about before, and AJ and Vaughn and Jeff Jackson. It was just like a really, really great group of just people riding and veterans riding and just being stoked together and having a good time. I love bringing people happiness through mountain biking. That's why we do this podcast. So to me, Dirt Therapy Project just really resonated as a really cool organization.
I think the obvious question here is, did Dirt Therapy ride Dirt Therapy?
We did not. Yes, that's a good point. I know, right?
What a miss.
I know. Yes. Well, we were being very intentional about how much climbing was done. So, everyone was on analog bikes, and the climbs, you really want to make sure that everyone's going to enjoy the downhill. So not everyone is going to enjoy doing the jump line. So, they picked trails that I think that everyone was going to have fun on and flow and also challenge. And it was a big group. So you're not doing double blacks, you're not doing jump trails. It's a group ride.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Well, listen, this transitions beautifully into my mountain bike tip, because on my ride as the group leader, because I invited them to Skyline, as a group leader, it's my job to make sure that everybody gets to the destination on time. And I made a major faux pas. What's a major mistake? What major? I don't know what the word here is. But
both of those work.
Okay. Well, listen, I'm a no warm-up type of guy. And we leave the parking lot, and Andrew and I are just yapping away. And, I'm feeling his presence. So I'm like, I can go faster.
You leave the parking lot. You mean like the ride started?
Yes.
You're on your bike leaving the parking lot.
Yes. We have all 4 people, and we start the trail. All 4 of us are together. Andrew's talking to me. I'm enjoying the conversation. He's talking to me. So I'm like, this is not that hard for him. So I start going faster. We're still, and he's in tremendous shape. I'm in pretty good shape. We're still yapping away. I'm fly. That trail is slight incline up to Skyline. We are trucking it. I mean, we are flying. And then I look back, we get to the road, and I look back, and Elena and Mike are nowhere to be seen. And I was like, oh no, what did you do?
You dropped them.
What did you? I dropped and that's my mountain bike tip. If you're the ride leader,
if people are too slow,
you're paying attention. No.
If you're riding with people that are too slow, drop them. There's only one way that people learn that they need to get faster, and that is to be dropped. And no uncertain terms, with no, how do they say it? With no prejudice, or dropped with prejudice.
Here, listen,
extreme
not
prejudice.
Everybody. Oh, there we go. But not everybody, they were in great shape. It's just, I don't need a warm up. Most people need a warm up. Apparently Andrew didn't need a warm up either. And, as a ride leader, you have to be paying attention to all those things. You don't want to turn around and half the group is, 3 miles back or whatever. And that's a huge responsibility. As a ride leader, you have to set a pace that everyone's comfortable at. Elena and Mike, maybe they needed more of a warm up. I mean, we literally exited the lot and we're just gone. And I just felt absolutely terrible. And that shouldn't happen. So if you're a ride leader, make sure that everyone is with you at all times. That's my mountain bike tip.
I think it's a great tip. Be very, very cognizant. We're all out here to have fun together. Be very cognizant that you're riding trails that everyone's comfortable with. And same thing on the climbs. If we need to stop halfway up, if you're going to have your ride where you want to go out and get your PR on a climb, that may not be that group ride. Maybe there's a group ride where you're going to be pushing yourself, right? But be cognizant of who you're riding with. We're here to have fun, and just go with intention. You know what feels right? Slow down. Make sure everyone's having fun. And at the end of the day, if everyone's on the same page, it's so much better than torturing someone because you don't need a warm up or you're a little bit fitter.
I wasn't intentionally, just to make myself not look like a total jerk face. I wasn't intentionally trying. I literally, like, Andrew he was talking in a very casual, and I was like, oh, yes. I didn't think that I didn't know what was happening. It was Andrew's fault. Is what I'm trying to say.
That's what I'm picking up on. Yeah, we're gaslighting Andrew. It was Andrew's fault. and he's a terrible friend to these other people, and he totally tricked you into dropping them. He's like, look, he texted me later on. They had it coming. That I'm tired of them warming up slowly. I had a plan. I was going to distract Sage. Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, if you're still listening, you are definitely one of us. You love riding bikes. You love talking about mountain bikes. We appreciate you. We have gratitude to all of our listeners. Please like and subscribe on your podcast player. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Watch the videos to the end. Everybody have a fantastic week and a great week of riding. We appreciate you. Ride and laugh.
I'll see you, everyone.